Reverend David Ugolo, Executive Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, ANEJ, and member of the Interim Executive Council of the Non-State Actors of African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Well, I would like to begin with you since I can hear that your audio network is good. I would like to begin with you. We're discussing, youth and corruption. And we often describe corruption, as Nigeria's biggest problem. And from your perspective, how does it affect young people personally?
Thank you very much. First, we see that corruption is a very huge problem, and no wonder that the global or international community is focusing on the issue. Here in Doha, over 100 countries are assembling here again discussing the issue of corruption. If you look at the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, Nigeria have consistently scored below 30 out of 100 on the Corruption Perception Index. And the issue of illicit financial flow costs billions of dollars, which would have otherwise been invested in education, healthcare, energy, job creation. And over 60% of Nigerian lives on multidimensional poverty. And youth unemployment and underdevelopment is a key issue. And over 70% of Nigerians are under age of 35. And you can see that the youths are mostly affected by corruption in Nigeria. And this is a very huge problem. And as a critical change agent, they play a major role to change this problem and to be able to play a very pivotal role to beginning to change the whole impact of corruption in Nigeria. And so no wonder this year that the team of this year, 2025, is focusing on the youth and hopefully for them to shape the future integrity and beginning to play a major role on how we can move away from where we are now.
Many thanks, Reverend Ugola, for your opening comments. How the youth can play a role in moving from where we are now. The question is, those who brought us to this point, are they ready to shift? I'd like to get to you, our guest in the studio now, and like the spokesperson of the ICPC, Mr. Ude, to respond to that. I mean, we're talking corruption, we're talking young people. We didn't get us to this point, right? The older ones, or if you like, the leaders that we currently have, who are not young people, brought us to this point, and probably introduce corruption to the younger ones. So how can the young ones really change the narrative? Is that possible?
It is possible the young ones can change the narrative. But first, who got us to this point? We collectively brought ourselves to this point. The old, the young, we all brought ourselves to this point. It will not be fair to say that a certain group of people, simply because they are old, brought us here. Amongst the older generation, they are upright people. Fall into that generalization. The truth is that collectively, we have failed ourselves. And the younger ones appear to be the most hit. But there is hope. Hope in the sense that right now, the younger ones live in a generation, live in a time where the technology available to them, which they understand better than we do, can help. Innovation and technology can help in reducing a whole lot of things. And to a large extent, we depend on the younger ones to use this technology. I give you an example. I am struggling to understand what AI is. But a 10-year-old child who has never been put in a classroom and taught AI from the coding lesson he or she got in primary 3, coding lessons, they will manipulate this AI environment and you'll be shocked. And they know what to do with it. University, no, a secondary school child understands that cheating in an exam is exam malpractice and is wrong. He finds exam malpractice going on. He keeps quiet. He doesn't report. Is he not an accomplice? That's one scenario. The second scenario, a young person who gets up every day and sees that things are not right within his environment. He has access. He has access better than some other people. He doesn't use that access to report.
Have brought corruption into the country. Most of them were once youths that were controlling the country. They're growing, and then they tell the younger generation, tomorrow you'll be the leader. And it's like the tomorrow leader is like, it's going slower than the tortoise. And the Nigerian youths around the world, are impatient. They want to be part of the system itself. So in your opinion now, how did we get here, and how do we begin to change their perspective that nation first, you must love your nation, you must contribute positively to your nation? And thankfully, President Tinubu has a lot of young people in his cabinet, and they're doing well. So is that a turning point?
Well, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, that was supposed to be my first then come from. We'll start from the home. Where have we failed as parents, then nationally? Now, we talk about percentages. What percentage of the children are we looking at here? The ones growing up in the village are not parlor. They are not growing up in the parlor. But unfortunately, they don't have the opportunities that those in the urban areas or in the parlor have. Some of them have never seen tabs before. Some of them they don't even understand. So that's where we are today.
All right, Mr. Atulagbe, interesting that you're trying to say, well, the youths brought all of this, and of course,
Yes, they did.
have remained. I'm looking forward to more young people sending in their comments about that.
We're waiting, yes.
Opinion anyway. But I'd like to get to Reverend Ugolo, because we're talking about how the youth can change this, and in my mind, I'm thinking, is that really possible? Can the youth change all of this if those who are currently at the top, or if you like the older ones, do not change? Because we have a culture of celebrating corruption, whether in religious houses, whether in our communities, anywhere. People get into offices, or you don't know their source of wealth. They come in, they give some donations, and then they are glorified, they are exalted, they are given awards, they are made leaders and all of that. That's the example the young person sees. And so for any young person...
And then, like our friend from ICPC rightly noted, using technology to tackle corruption, the AI can be used. And the open source information, open source OSINT is another approach of tackling corruption. This new method and approach of tackling corruptions, the youth can also take an advantage of it, because when corruption is tackled, it becomes a win-win situation. Let's also not just restrict to the youth alone. This is the time for collective action. And I'm happy that in the last 1 week now, we have seen that what we have not seen before in Nigeria, a very prominent Nigerian businessman has blew the whistle on a public official. Dangote have raised an alarm, and this is the beginning of the collective action we are talking about. So it is a collaboration between the youth, the elders. We begin to point to how do we solve this problem. I think the political way to translate this to a concrete impact in Nigeria is for our government to begin to listen to the youth. And then the youth also need to engage. In engaging, we can also point to a good example in Edo State where some group of youth have also come together to keep track of what the governor has promised since he came on board. And they are reminding him what has been fulfilled and what has not been fulfilled. And that, again, is a practical way of translating integrity into reality. And so we should begin to identify what works and what doesn't work. And then how do we escalate it? And in the last few weeks, we have also organized an international conference to mark the World Anti-Corruption Day, where we brought youth from different parts of the country with support from FCDO to, again, look at what can the youth do to help build that common agenda that will begin to shape the integrity for the future. Because lamenting will not solve the problem. What we need to begin to look at, like what NTA is also doing, by giving this issue a prime time for conversation, is another way of providing opportunity to take this issue further. I think these are the kind of thing we need to be putting together to take this whole conversation forward.
I like the fact that you mentioned technology, because we all know that Nigerian youths are some of the most intelligent, most vibrant youths across the world. And you're now in Doha at a conference, discussing corruption and also youth. So, what is one hard truth I'm going to ask you that youths, have said about corruption that government itself has refused to accept as the truth?
Um, First, I think one key thing that the youth has put on the table is about lack of action, the political will for the government to act. The evidence of corruption is everywhere, but whether we have been able to use the existing law an existing institution to tackle corruption in Nigeria is another question entirely. And I think this is where the challenge are, that it is very clear that if government act on what the youth are saying, is that if we begin to build an alliance, that alliance will help advance the conversation of corruption. And that's exactly the best way to move forward in tackling corruption in Nigeria. And the best way to tackle corruption is to see how we can take up the opportunity that institutions that are in place like EFCC, ICPC, Code of Conduct, all these institutions provide opportunity for the youth to engage. And you can engage by whistleblowing, you can engage by petition, you can engage by raising an alliance with those institutions to see how they can help bring to justice those who are corrupt. Like I mentioned earlier on, the whistleblow by Dangote on the fuel industry is a huge opportunity for the youth to build an alliance with the private sector to initiate a collective action to make sure they use technology to escalate the demand that Dangote have put forward before the Nigerian government.
All right, many thanks, Reverend Ugolo. Let's return to the studio. We'll get back to you shortly. And of course, I'd like to get to Mr. Odi. Now, by the way, the number that you can send your comments or questions or observations to is on the screen. Please feel free to do the needful. You can send either SMS or WhatsApp messages. Of course, we'll read them. Many thanks to our viewers. So I'd like to get to you, Mr. Odi. I mean, we're just talking about corruption, and I'm thinking, is it about talk? Can talk do the magic? Growing up, my dad used to say that it's when a fish is not yet dried that you bend it. Once it's dried, bending it will break it, right? So, I mean, habits have been formed, culture, character, and all of that. It's about molding people afresh. And I'm thinking, is it just talk that will do the work? I want to hear from you, about if just this talking, if we don't see action. Reverend Gola just talked about a public official, being called out. The situation where people are being called out, they defect or they do one thing, and those issues are swept under the carpet.
Up to when they finish university as core members, even after they have finished service. We have platforms to engage them. Why do we do this? And what are the platforms anyway? At the primary and secondary school level, we have created Students Anti-Corruption Club across Nigeria. As I speak to you today, we have over 478 student anti-corruption clubs established across Nigeria, and we are still establishing more. The SCPC is in 21 states, and through these interactions, they have changed things in their schools. Their headmasters, their principals are very conscious of these children, and they have changed their attitude in many ways. So it's working. At the tertiary institution level, we have what we call the Students Anti-Corruption Vanguard, the Vanguard. They do the same thing done at the secondary school level, but at a more informed and more engaging level. They hold seminars, they hold workshops, they do town storming. They actually go to town, they leave their school, go to town, join civil society organizations, go to town to create awareness on corruption issues within their school. They do it within their school. They call out their lecturers. They call out administrators. Recently, you are aware the ICPC got a conviction for a criminal case against a university lecturer, Professor Cyril Osim Difon of the University of Calabar, former Dean Faculty of Law. Before his conviction 2 months ago or a month ago, we also got a conviction sometime in the past for a Professor Akindele from the Obafemi Awolowo University. Now, what were they convicted for? Sexual harassment. In the case of Professor Osim, cyberbullying and sexual harassment. He used technology the wrong way. And then he abused his position by sexually recruiting them into the anti-corruption CDS group. They joined the CDS group, the ICPCA NYSC CDS group, Community Development Service. They go to schools, talk to children in schools, organize them. They go to the markets, identify corrupt practices that our market men and women are engaged in. They talk to them. They go to churches, they go to mosques, they talk to the religious leaders because they are aware that these religious leaders are also part of the problem. They are aware. They talk to them. Some listen, some do not listen. Some chase them away, but they never give up. They're taking action, they're not just talking. The Nigerian youth, from our perspective, from what we have seen, have decided that how did he get into this position in the first place? Corruption got him into that position. And what is he doing? Extorting, harassing, and a whole lot of other things.
And a whole lot of other things. I mentioned love because you must have a love for a profession before you start doing that work. In the you maybe just they needed lecturers, and one politician said, I'm going to send somebody to lecture. And even as students growing up, we saw that a handout that has been used for the past 20 years is the same handout that has been used to
quota system.
Yes. I'm talking about about education. Mr. Akinola, what roles should schools and universities play beyond?
Bigger picture. Can we have a curriculum on anti-corruption?
And critical thinking.
And critical thinking and civic education, where people must know their rights and ask questions. So I think it is very, very important that we look at the curriculum. Now, this same curriculum is also what is affecting what we bring out from our children in schools. Like you said, all we do is theory. You go to some schools, they don't even have a laboratory anymore, either physics, chemistry, or biology. I say that with every authority because the hope of enhancing skills, and then introduce some of the things that I spoke on earlier: civic education, anti-corruption, learning anti-corruption.
But you see, to deal with these issues, we need to fix leadership issues. You talked about going to that school, government funded.
Yes.
As at the time you were there, everything was working.
Yes.
Government was providing.
Yes.
So if it deteriorated, of course, there was failure either on the part of the school authority or on the part of government in charge of that school. So these children you're talking about, if we don't fix that leadership issue such that, these things are available, right? Because the children can provide it. So can we actually fix the corruption issue? And that's why I would like to ask you the question I asked Mr. Ode earlier about not punishing people for, corruption. Do we solve the problem that way? Because if somebody steals or somebody diverts funds or, there are records of, mismanagement and all of that, and these people are not brought to book, they're not, what we get to see is plea bargain, we get to see that, they jump ship to one party, ICPC sweeps the matter under the carpet, we don't hear about it anymore, and all of that. So how will those schools have those facilities when the money isn't available, it's in someone's pocket?
Well, let me quickly, before I go into that question, there's a question she asked that I have not addressed, the issue of technology. Now, we can help this issue of corruption nationally if we are serious about fighting corruption, if there's a political will, then we need to go into digital governance. Make everything transparent. What revenue is coming in? FIRS. Can we see your spreadsheet? What is coming in from each sector? The expenditure. What have you been spending on? Then the youth who have access to that technology will ask questions. So that's the way to go.
State governments, how much do they get?
Exactly.
What do they do with the money?
Exactly.
Local
governments.
Yes. So digital governance will bring a lot of transparency. Now, why did these schools get decayed? It's because of corruption. Every year, I think aside from defense budgets, education comes next. But we don't see it. So that's also an outcome of corruption. Somebody somewhere has taken what is supposed to be used to maintain the schools for personal use. Because when you budget every year, you look at what do I need to do for schools, what do I need to do for hospitals, and you make provisions for them. And when the budget is approved and the money is given out, what you have promised, like the example he gave in Edo, what you have promised, you don't do it. So, but to a very large extent, we need to encourage our youth to ask questions. Like the Edo guys did, Eskisa, these are what you promised. You are so far into your administration. Please don't forget to do what you have promised. Okay? So, I believe that with technology, we'll make...
Of some of our leaders, he's referring to you. He said fish got damaged from the head. I know when you bend it. And Ajayi Tunde Moses from Oworo Shaki, Lagos, said the youth of nowadays need to be worked upon. A typical youth will tell you that he wants to get there and take his own cake. What can you say about that? That's Ajayi Tunde Moses from Lagos. And Mohammed Sani Sambo said, good morning. The need for uniting the youth against corruption can't be overemphasized. Again, I think parents, religious leaders, and government need to do a lot in this regard. Appointments should not be given to those with questionable character. Parents should take time to monitor their kids. The religious leaders should do more in preaching about the effects of corruption. And Abubakar Balagarba from Kaduna said, fighting corruption in Nigeria can't defeat corruption with speeches alone. The truth is uncomfortable. Our system often rewards corruption and punishes honesty. Many sincere civil servants give their best years to this country and still retire poor. That is not an accident, it is a warning signal. The younger generation is watching. When hard work leads nowhere and corruption leads to comfort, society is teaching the wrong lesson. If we're serious about fighting corruption, we must build institutions that reward integrity, protect honest workers, and promote real role models. He said we must also stop hiding behind excuses, whether cultural, political, or even religious. Corruption is not God's will. It's the human choice. Until we change the system that enables it, we're not fighting corruption, we're only pretending. Say good morning. And another one said, please can you make your contributions as short as possible so that we can be able to read the others. He said, good morning Nigerians. Uniting youth against corruption is likely timely, and the anti-corruption agencies like EFCC, ICPC, amongst others, should be supported to take them. And another one said, good morning Nigerians. Well done NTA. Many thanks for the topic of discussion today. Corruption stems from the total breakdown of our moral values and belief systems, irresponsible leadership, social media influence, poverty, and denying masses of basic needs from childhood by the government, and fast-changing role of father and mother due to economic downturn in recent time. The remedy, as a matter of urgency, constructive and deliberate action by the government for the total reorientation of the entire populace, upholding the values of reward and punishment for a particular action by the people. Above all, the government should engage the citizens, especially the youth, in the areas of socio-economic and political development of our nation. Kayode Busari from Lagos. And Ambassador on theological learning has done more harm than good, leaving many graduates stranded in society. We can do better as a country. There should be more focus on practical education skills that help individuals solve real day-to-day problems and become self-reliant. You know, Nwode Gabriel from Ebonyi State. Our guests will be able to respond to some of these, and Iyari will be able to read hers, but that will be after the break. We'll be right back.
The Renewed Hope Initiative RHI presents the RHI Green Nigeria Challenge. Go green today for a greener tomorrow. This national competition is in 3 categories. The household category is a tree planting competition amongst 11 frontline states in northern Nigeria. Each participating household in Adamawa, Borno, Bauchi, Gombe, Jigawa, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, Yobe, and Zamfara states will plant a minimum of 1 tree to qualify, with a video evidence of before and after the tree planting exercise. 20 million naira will be awarded to the best household. Submission deadline is 20th December 2026. Community category will see local governments, local communities, schools, and NGOs reclaim and transform degraded or abandoned areas such as dump sites, landfills, parks, and their likes into green, vibrant gardens, parks, and eco-friendly spaces. 50 million naira would be awarded to the overall best community group. Deadline for submission is 15th July 2026. State category will have all states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, excluding Enugu State, have a chance to address the growing threats to environmental sustainability and cleanliness. States will be judged based on the number of trees planted on major roads and inner streets and how clean they are. 100 million naira will be awarded to the best performing state. Already, Enugu State has 100 million naira for being RHI's model green state due to its greenery and cleanliness. Video evidence must be submitted by participating states on or before 20th December 2026. All entries must be directed to RHI Office, State House, Abuja, or email rhi.greenchallenge@statehouse.gov.ng. RHI Green Nigeria Challenge. Go green today for a greener tomorrow.
You have no better friend and partner than Nigeria. Let this unveiling today be a call to conscience. Let our practitioners hold the line of truth. To the media, please inform with integrity and with a deep sense of patriotism. To our public officers, communicate with transparency. To citizens, please let us speak with empathy. Let us come together to become the voice of responsibility, the voice of the world that heals division, that inspires hope and drives development.
This December, all eyes in Morocco. Africa assemble. All dreams are heading one way.
All passion, all fire.
Because here, we play different.
Choose your side.
Show your colors.
Bring your flag.
And we welcome you to Morocco.
Get ready for the drama, the passion, the pride. From 21st December 2025 to 18th January 2026, history will be made again.
You guys ready?
Time to wake up.
Afro Sports, your freedom of sport.
All right, many thanks for staying with us. We're still talking about uniting youths against corruption. I guess that's still very much with us. Before we went to that break, some messages were read, and I would like Reverend Ugola to respond quickly, just so we can take some more messages. We have a lot of messages from our viewers. So, Reverend Ugola, your quick response, in summary, to all the questions, if you like, comments that have been raised.
Well, first, I want to commend all those who have had the opportunity to respond, and to also say that, again, you can point to optimism. People are not hopeless, and that for me is a room for opportunity to begin to look for a way to build alliance. And I'm happy, like I said earlier on, we can point to the fact that it's not just the youth that are complaining now, even the entire country is complaining, and we all need action. One thing that came out very clearly is the culture of impunity. When people commit crime, nothing happens. And when that happens, it continues to normalize corruption across the country. And I think my appeal, I join millions of Nigerians, youth, to appeal to our President Tinubu, that what he will be remembered for is to be able to be on the side of the youth of this country to create hope. And the only way he can create hope is to be able to empower the anti-corruption institutions like ICPC, EFCC, Code of Conduct to play their role. The political way to do that lies with the president of Nigeria, President Tinubu. And the challenge has been put on his doorstep in the last 1 week. We have never seen this before in Nigeria. We have never heard of this before in Nigeria. We have seen now that a very prominent Nigerian, has come out to say that, look, I have evidence against a key government agency. And you know, fuel is something that Nigerians use very well. If you want to develop this country, if you want to improve the industry in this country, if you want to create jobs in this country, the role of fuel, the role of energy cannot be overemphasized. And so the business around it, the corruption around it is what is destroying this country. Now, we have seen a man who you cannot question his role in this country has come out to blow a whistle on the man and said, look, over $5 million is spent for his children's school fees overseas. What do the president need to put this man under trial? We challenge the EFCC, ICPC to rise up to the challenge, to see that the culture of impunity don't continue in Nigeria, so that our youth can begin to have a hope in this country. Thank you.
Golo, welfare and fuel, electricity is also a critical factor, you know, to move this country forward and, of course, to empower the young people, you know, to get their hands busy. Many thanks for your comments. I'd like to take some of the comments we have from our viewers so our guests in the studio can respond to them. This one says, I'm Nandop Weep from Jos. Corruption manifests itself in overcrowded schools with leaking rooftops, in roads that are so damaged that they become nearly impassable and are death traps, I should add that, and in health centers where essential medicines are always out of stock. It lurks in the shadows of public offices where bribes are the norm for basic services, and it thrives in the unchecked power of officials who prioritize personal gain over public good. Yet, amid these challenges, the youth of today stand as beacons of hope and agents of change. Quite a long message. I'll leave it at that. This one says, hello, good morning. My name is Aminu Ahmed Newman. Uniting Nigerian youth against corruption is necessary, but we must be honest. Corruption has become normalized because people feel long oppressed. This frustration makes today's youth more dangerous than previous generations. However, there is hope. If Nigeria strengthens two institutions without bias, the police and the judiciary, and applies the law equally to everyone, corruption will reduce. Nigerians are naturally law-abiding. When rules are clear and enforced, people comply. Accountability will change behavior. Another one says, I'm Emmanuel from Ekiti. Nigerian youths behave like the cock whose feathers were plucked out by its master. The cock cried out with pain and in blood, but when the master throws grains on the floor for it, the cock comes back to eat. We need to wake up. That's a parable. And of course, it has many meaning, you know. This one says, good morning, NTA. Because he has no money, not to seek for any means to avert his shame. If the justice system is okay, youths will shun corruption. Young John sent that. This one says, good morning to you all in the studio. Talking about uniting youths against corruption. To tackle corruption, the anti-graft agency must go all out on government MDAs to employ young graduates like the police and demand huge, like the police, they demand huge amount from the person before giving them jobs. Please, what do you expect the young man to do when he knows he has to pay before getting the job? That's Emmanuel Joseph Bello from Jos. May God help us in this country. So says, good morning to all the panel members. I'm Abbas Abubakar Saad from Jalingo, Taraba State. Corruption remains one of the greatest threats to our national development. If we truly want to unite young people against corruption, then our actions as a nation must clearly match our words. When individuals found guilty of corruption are pardoned or celebrated, it sends a very dangerous message to the youths that corruption has rewards and consequences are temporary or avoidable. This means moral values discourages honesty. We should learn from countries that have taken corruption seriously. I think we should adopt China's model that demonstrates zero tolerance regardless of status, which can deter corruption and restore public confidence. Quite a number. I don't think we can take all of them, but of course we appreciate all the comments. This one says corruption can be forgotten if there's transparency in any political activity, especially in financial aspect. Another one says, The corruption that you're discussing is mostly in the primary school level. Most salaries have not been paid over 6 months, some 10 months. So now, what about the future of their children? Without them being paid, there will be no money to take care of their children, which of course leaves them on the street and they pick up all kinds of vices. I mean, quite a number of messages, but of course it just sums up to, I mean, accountability, transparency, leadership in all of.
He talked about the need for a change in our curriculum. The ICPC in the year 2003 started the process of midwifing a values curriculum, national values curriculum, into the Nigerian educational curriculum. After some years of processing it, it came into force. We worked on that with the Nigerian Education Resource Development Council, where we now introduced what we call the NVC, the National Values Curriculum, into the Nigerian educational curriculum at the basic level. That is primary 1 to JS3, that's basic 9. We have civics, integrity, anti-corruption issues, all infused into subjects which are taught to these children. And it undergoes review from time to time. As I speak to you, it is in the process of another review to make it relevant to the existing realities. As things change, we review and change them. Have they been very effective? Yes. But enough for us to beat our chest and say, we are getting there? No, it's not yet El Dorado. We are hoping that it will change. Things will change as we teach them. We are training teachers now in the process of teaching this curriculum effectively. Then you talked about celebrating consequences for corruption.
Corruption.
You're very right. Corruption.
Most of these big. So how can we fight corruption now without turning it into ethnic, religious, or political warfare?
Well, let me start by saying corruption doesn't have a religion. It doesn't speak any language. So,
I ask this question because when corrupt, people are released, maybe from prison or from a case has been finished, you see all the people outside waiting for them are the youths.
And sometimes when they're persecuted, they say it's because he's from this tribe or because he's this.
Yes.
You know.
That's why.
to a very large extent, our value orientation has shifted a lot. What we were taught growing up don't exist anymore. Now, you will also excuse them if the value orientation has shifted, because what they see is what has changed the orientation. Now, like I said earlier, we used to have the rich class, the middle class, and then the poor. Okay? Now, we only have two classes with this large. In all the organizations, part of what we will also be doing is to change our value orientation.
All right, changed value orientation. That's great work. Everybody's involved. The National Rotation Agency, parents, government, everybody has a stake in that. Reverend Ugolo, I'd like to get to you now as we begin to round off this conversation. You say there is hope. The youths, yes, maybe some agree with you. Some prefer to jackpot. Some who remain would prefer to do anything, whether positive or negative, just so they can be able to make it in life. I'd like you to speak, to the conscience of a young person watching about why we should not think about corruption. How does it better us as a people?
First, I want to say that, again, we must continue to encourage the youth across the country, and also see the opportunity that this year team provides us to begin to look into the future, to uniting the youth against corruption. And the strength we can derive from youth mobilizing and always understanding that it is only when we end the culture of corruption and impunity in Nigeria, the issue of Japa from Nigeria will end. Because the things that people think that they want to get overseas, they are there in Nigeria. We got all it requires to grow the country and for the country to provide the enabling environment for the youth to achieve their goal in life. So all we need to do as youth is to beginning to organize and seize the opportunity that are opening for us to challenge the culture of impunity, to engage. The youth should not distance themselves away from not engaging. We must engage the EFCC, we must engage the ICPC, we must engage the Code of Conduct. All these institutions provides an enabling environment for us to tackle the challenge of corruption. All we need to do is to tackle the challenge of corruption. All we need to do is to use the modern technology, artificial intelligence, to use open source intelligence, use it to build a whistleblowing system. And that's why I think that the youth should seize the opportunity of Dangote whistleblowing to advance a collective action in Nigeria and support the government, because this is a huge opportunity for President Tinubu to seize, to end the culture of corruption in the oil importation in Nigeria. Because once Tinubu is able to end that problem, I can tell you that there will be paradise, and the issue of jackpotting from Nigeria will end as quickly as possible, and the youth will have opportunity to have access to job, and then economic growth will happen, and then prosperity will happen in Nigeria.
When Boutros Ghali said that if there's a God, that God exists in Nigeria when he was the UN Secretary General. Now, Mr. Ode, what would success look like in the next 5 years if the Tinubu administration takes the issue of our youths, seriously, actually? And if you're given 1 minute in a gathering, because I know ICPC has been doing a lot
against corruption. I thank, and the ICPC thanks the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration for working seriously between 2023 to 2025 to get us off that grey list. Today, an average young person, an average Nigerian, can travel overseas, use your debit card, not credit card, on any financial institution's platform overseas, and corresponding banking operations will come into effect. You can pay using your Naira card anywhere in the world right now, because the confidence in the Nigerian financial system has grown
back
because of this action by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. Let's take it to how we can support the youth, how this administration can support the youth. The administration can support the youth against corruption by empowering effectively all the anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria through adequate and timely funding to enable us mobilize the youth. We have a lot of programs for them. Sometimes it is working. We have what we call the Constituency and Executive Project Tracking Initiative, CEPTI.